Smoak.
Mike Heller covers the state of Wisconsin like a blanket, like snow maybe during the wintertime. Radio host the Mike Heller Show, 97.3 The Game in Milwaukee, Fox Sports 1070 in Madison, and he joins us on 365 Sports with Craig Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Mike, thank you very much. I know it's been a busy week in Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. Your thoughts about how this seemed to change from Jim Leonard, that everyone thought was probably the one, to then Luke Fickell, and your thoughts and what's the reaction been?
Yeah, I think if we look at this with the obviously the perspective of hindsight, I think that what we probably learned is that it was Luke Fickell's job to say yes to, and if he didn't say yes, I think Jim Leonard was absolutely going to be the next full-time head coach. But Luke Fickell said yes. And I think Chris McIntosh, who's the athletic director at Wisconsin, did a really good job of vetting all of the processes, but also keeping it close to the vest. He did not share information. None of this leaked out. There were no rumors or rumblings of when somebody would have interviewed. I think he vetted Dave Aranda at Baylor, who's a former Wisconsin assistant. And I think he went through Luke Fickell. I think he went through from Kansas, Lance Leipold, the former Wisconsin Whitewater head coach. I think those were the guys. But I think it was going to be Fickell or it was going to be Jim Leonard.
Mike, this is clearly like a big move that has a lot to do with realignment and what's going to be going on. Did they feel that maybe Jim Leonard doesn't give them that juice? Because, again, everybody seems to love him, but just not as much as they maybe need Luke Fickell.
Yeah, I think that I think Jim's lack of college football head coaching experience. Listen, I think 5 years ago, the same scenario plays itself out. Jim Leonard gets the job. I think right now, that with the incredible volatility and the changing landscape of college football, I don't know if the success of your football program has ever been more important than it is right now and over the next number of years. So I think that Jim Leonard would have been a great choice. He's in the family. But I think that Luke Fickell's track record at Cincinnati made this decision for Chris McIntosh easy. I'm not certain it's the right one overall. We're going to find that out over the course of time. But I think they felt it was the right decision, and that's why they went this direction.
Mike, I watched a lot of that opening press conference, and they had, I know, the Q&A and all of that. It seemed like there was already some pretty good chemistry working with Fickell and the AD and the history there. Obviously, it's all rosy right now, but looking at ahead and what the challenge is, what were kind of your initial impressions in hearing him talk about the job, and what are the things that you feel like are on the forefront of the to-do list once he gets his bearings?
Well, I think that for Wisconsin, you have to look at some big picture stuff first. Now, they did a 7-year contract that's going to pay Luke Fickell about $7.8 million per year, which would put that fifth, maybe sixth in the Big Ten of the 14 teams in the league. That's a step up for Wisconsin. What Wisconsin needed to do in this process was they needed to make a commitment to what the program is going to be. I think the program has been incredibly successful under Barry Alvarez and Brett Bielema and Paul Christ. But the landscape changed, within the last 18 months on NIL and the transfer portal. And Wisconsin needs to step up their ability to play in the deep water with big programs. And that's from a facility standpoint, that's from a spending standpoint, that's from a budgeting for recruiting and recruiting staff standpoint. They need to play in the deep end of the pool, and I don't know that they were doing that. So it starts there, and then job one, if that's not job one, and I think it is for the university to have the commitment, then job one for Luke Fickell becomes we need to go out and get a quarterback that can win at this level of play. And I think the quarterback is the great differentiator, even more so in college than it is in the NFL.
How much did they need to get away from the Barry Alvarez family tree?
Well, that's a fair debate that be had because I don't know that they had to. Jim Leonard was in that tree.
Yep,
I think Jim Leonard would have had great success here. What he would have had to do is Jim Leonard would have had to go out and turn the offense over to a very bright, innovative, offensive-minded coach, because Jim has done that on defense. Jim Leonard's defenses are fantastic, but he would have had to turn the offense over, and I think that they see that Luke Fickell kind of has that already in play, so they had to skip a step. Jim Leonard would have had to take a few steps, and they wanted to skip them. But I don't think they needed to get out of the Alvarez tree. Maybe Chris McIntosh wants to. Maybe he wants to have his own identity on the program. This is a significant hire, and he will be judged, right? I mean, that's how it works. You're judged as an AD on who you hire to be your football coach, and that happens at Texas and at Baylor and at Wisconsin, as it's happening at Kansas, as it does at Notre Dame and everywhere else.
Mike, I wouldn't assume that they're going to be too much terribly different stylistically than Barry Alvarez. Probably more modernized, I would guess, or Paul Chryst, before Jim Leonard and all that. But
sure,
because is there a way you kind of have to build because of the weather and the conditions in Wisconsin that your style of play has to not necessarily travel, it has to play at home?
Yeah, you have to be able to feature that big, strong offensive line and then continue to put really good running backs like Jonathan Taylor and Melvin Gordon in behind that offensive line. But I think the missing piece that has always been with Wisconsin, and you can plug in just, about 95% of the college football programs in America, the missing piece has been they haven't had a quarterback like Russell Wilson other than Russell Wilson. And those quarterbacks, Caleb Williams at USC, those quarterbacks make all the difference. And Wisconsin needs a quarterback that can threaten you with his legs as well as his arms. But like I said, you can plug in that statement for any college football program in America. Wisconsin has not done a good enough job at the quarterback position. They graduate offensive linemen to the NFL every year. And the running backs are awfully good, with Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor being the last two examples going to the NFL. Braylon Allen is a really good running back. I don't know if he'll be here next year. It's those things. You don't have to change the style, but you better threaten people with the way you perform on offense. And from the quarterback position, they haven't done that.
What's been kind of the general reaction from the Badgers fan base?
Shock initially, and then it's a 50-50 split on the Leonard to Luke Fickell crowd. I think if I would have said to our fan base a week ago, Jim Leonard's not going to get this job, I think 80% of them would have been up in arms. But then if I would have followed up and said Luke Fickell is the head coach, then I think we got what we got. I think it was, oh my gosh, really? And I think one of the big question marks, and I've raised this on my show, is can Luke Fickell translate what he did in the American Conference, the AAC, can he translate that into, again, the deep end of the pool? Now he's fighting on recruits with Ohio State, not when Ohio State says, nah, that kid's not coming here, and then he would get that kid to stay and go to Cincinnati. This is a different deal now. And how does that translate? Everybody I've talked to about Luke Fickell raves about him. So I think that this has real legs to it and a real chance to get running.
Mike, if you don't mind, an NFL question, obviously with the Packers
Sure.
having the year that they're having, and it does seem like it's in a free fall despite the win against the Cowboys. What is the opinion now in Green Bay or in Wisconsin about their quarterback, and Love or Aaron Rodgers, and how's that kind of playing out right now?
So I think I've said this probably to you guys before, but Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, is revered here.
Oh yeah,
Aaron Rodgers, the person, has never connected here. I mean, people get it. They understand how great, and I think he's about the best quarterback I've ever seen do his work in the regular season. But he has never identified with the Wisconsin fan base. So when he falters a little bit, people are looking for next. Jordan Love, in the work he did Sunday night in the fourth quarter at Philadelphia, raised eyebrows because it's the first time we've seen him play at a level where people go, oh, wait, we could go next. But Rodgers re-signed that deal last year. He's due. He's got $59 million coming to him guaranteed on April 1st if he doesn't retire. So why would who's going to get him to retire with $59 million waiting for him, in the spring? So I think that the view on the Packers is that maybe you got something in Jordan Love. First time we've seen that. And I also think we're going to see more in Jordan Love, because if the Packers get mathematically eliminated, I think Rodgers will get shut down. And then you get to see Jordan Love and see how this plays forward.
I saw Love. Paul, you and I were texting, and I was very impressed with him. Again, we've seen him before, but he looked like he was composed. He's got a gun, and looked like he handled it well, considering what was going on at the time with a team that is struggling. Mike, I know it's been a crazy busy week. Thank you for putting up with me, and thanks for being a part of tonight with our show. Thank you.
All good. Happy to do it, boys.
Absolutely. It's, again, Mike Heller. He's on with Milwaukee and Madison, throughout Wisconsin. Hell of a talk show host. Appreciate his time on the Luke Fickell hire at Wisconsin and more. All right, Chris Vinny.